Welcome to the silence that roars louder than any storm, the moment where shadows bend their knees to the fire that is still burning in you. Yes, you. You may not hear the applause. You may not see the one standing for you, but believe me when I tell you this. The universe, the truth, the force that doesn't scream but moves mountains, it's fighting for you. And those who thought they could drown you in darkness, they're watching helplessly as your story is rising, without their permission. You might feel like you've been walking alone, dragging your soul through the mud of betrayal, fear, and pain that doesn't let up. You've seen people laugh at your silence, misunderstand your stillness, and mock your scars as if you chose them. But listen carefully now. They didn't see the fire growing underneath. They missed the moment the quiet turned into power. Because while they slept easy thinking you were done, someone was standing guard over you. Someone who sees your heart when no one else does. Someone who fights battles in rooms you'll never enter. Someone you might never meet, but whose entire purpose is to make sure your name isn't buried in shame, but engraved in survival. See, people think power is noise. That defense comes with a shield and a crowd. But the strongest protection is unseen. It's silent, strategic, divine. While your enemies have plotted, while they smiled in your face and sharpened their daggers behind your back, someone else, maybe life itself, has been making moves on your behalf. Quietly, powerfully, constantly. You didn't even know how close you came to breaking, how many traps were set with your name written in invisible ink. But they failed. And they're still failing because someone bigger than them is standing between their darkness and your destiny. And now, they don't know what to do. They can't explain it. You weren't supposed to rise. You weren't supposed to smile again. You weren't supposed to have another chance. But here you are, and it's driving them mad. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because they did everything they could to stop you and it didn't work. They whispered lies. They threw dirt. They tried to rewrite your truth. But the force standing with you rewrote the whole battle. Let me make something very clear. You're not weak for not fighting back. You're not soft because you didn't scream or expose or explode. That takes nothing from your strength. Because while your enemies used noise and numbers, the one protecting you used silence and precision. And they're not just defending you, they're dismantling every lie. They're returning every blow back to the sender, multiplied. They're draining your enemies of the energy they once used to target you. Their envy is now their burden. Their hate is now their weakness. And every time they rise against you, they lose something. Every single time. You need to understand this. The fact that you're still here is not luck. It's not random. It's not because they forgot to aim right. It's because someone blocked it. Someone stood up for you. Someone you might never get to thank. Someone who doesn't care for recognition. They only care about you standing tall, you moving forward, you becoming unstoppable, even if it takes a little longer than you thought. And you've been wondering why certain people faded away, why some doors didn't open, why situations didn't go your way. It wasn't failure. It was interception. You were being protected from things that looked like opportunities, but were really cages. You were being shielded from people who smiled like light, but planned like shadows. You were pulled back to be launched forward. And now the ones who plotted are stuck watching you rise without a reason they can understand. That's the kind of protection you have. Not loud, not flashy, but relentless. And now your haters, the doubters, the ones who measured your worth with their own broken scales, they're losing. Not just losing influence over you, they're losing themselves. Because what do you do when the person you tried to destroy is thriving without even touching you back. They threw stones, you built a fortress. They spread rumors, you found peace. They hoped you'd break. Instead, you evolved. And now they can't reach you, not because you ran, but because you rose so far above their reach, they'd need wings to match your silence. And they don't have wings, only noise. And noise dies in time. You may not feel powerful, you may not feel chosen, but you are. The war has already been decided. You're on the winning side. And the reason you're still walking through shadows is because you're meant to shine when it matters most. You're being trained in this darkness, sharpened, not punished. Every lonely night, every setback, every betrayal, it's forming armor they'll never be able to penetrate again. So keep going, even when it makes no sense, even when no one claps, even when it hurts to breathe. Keep going because someone's clearing the path ahead while you can't see it. Someone's fighting off attacks you don't know about. And the enemies, the haters, they're swinging in the dark now because the light of truth has blinded them. They can't find your weakness anymore. You've grown past the version of you they once toyed with. You're protected, not just by people, but by purpose. Destiny doesn't waste protection on things that don't matter. The very fact that life has stood in front of you time and time again means you are chosen. And chosen ones always attract attacks, but they also attract unstoppable protection. So let them laugh, let them plot, let them misunderstand. Every move they make only tightens the loss around them, because you're rising in silence, and your defenders, the ones you can't see, are winning in places your enemies can't even reach. They can't stop what they can't touch. And you've become untouchable, so walk like it. Even if you limp, even if you crawl, even if all you've got left is breath and belief. Walk like someone who's covered, like someone whose path is protected, like someone whose enemies are already being buried by their own hate, because they are, right now, without your hands lifted, without your words spoken, without your energy wasted. The battle is shifting, the smoke is clearing, and when it does, they won't be able to deny what they tried to avoid, that you're still here, stronger, smarter, sharper, and shielded by something so much greater than they'll ever understand. They tried to end you, but someone powerful defended you, and they're not done yet. And listen, I know what you're thinking. If someone's fighting for me, why does it still hurt so much? Why do I still feel so alone? Because protection doesn't always come with comfort. It doesn't always come wrapped in peace and warmth. Sometimes it looks like isolation. Sometimes it looks like unanswered prayers, like doors closing, like silence so loud it almost feels like punishment. But it's not. It's precision. It's war from another world, where you don't fight with fists, you fight with faith. And in this battle, your silence was a strategy. Your pain was pressure, yes, but also preparation. You were never abandoned. You were being hidden, covered, until the right moment, until your enemies exhausted themselves trying to find a version of you that no longer exists. You're wondering why the same people who once laughed around you now avoid your name, why they don't look you in the eye, why the ones who threw shade now live in the shadow of your growth. Because something changed. You didn't just survive, you outgrew their reach. You're too heavy with truth for their lies to carry anymore, and they feel it. Oh, they feel it, that chill in their spirit when they hear your name. Not because you attacked, but because you endured. The guilt, They swallow every time they see you shine without bitterness. That's their karma. That's the justice working behind the scenes. That's the power defending you. Choosing poetic silence over public vengeance. Choosing to let their own actions bury them in consequences. And what about you? You are rising into something they can't interpret anymore. They used to understand you, predict you, play you, but not now, not anymore. Because the storms that tried to break you only refined you. The betrayal made you brutal, not to others, but to your old limits. You stopped negotiating with weakness. You stopped explaining your heart to those who only wanted to twist it. You stopped shrinking. And now, the ones who tried to dominate your energy are watching it outgrow the cage they built for you. They're confused because they thought you were just bones and breath and history. But they missed the fire. They forgot what happens when someone chosen to survive is protected by purpose. When the universe itself starts working overtime to clean the path, block the traps, silence the noise. And here's the deeper truth. Not everyone knows who's fighting for you, not even you. But they feel it. That's why some people backed off without a fight. Why some enemies suddenly changed or moved on. They didn't get tired. They got warned. They crossed a line they didn't even know existed. And they felt it. That invisible force that whispered, "Not this one. Not anymore." That's power. That's the kind of protection that doesn't just shield you. It shifts the entire battlefield. It makes your enemies rethink the war. Because suddenly what they used to attack you starts falling apart in their own hands. The gossip doesn't stick. The betrayal circles back. The lies unravel. Not because you exposed them, but because the truth defended you before you ever opened your mouth. And you've got to start walking like you believe that, because you're not a mistake. You're not broken. You're not abandoned. You are guarded, watched, carried, fought for in silence. And if you could see the battles being won on your behalf in realms unseen, you'd cry with gratitude. You'd laugh at the enemies who thought they had a chance. You'd stop doubting your path, because you'd realize how many weapons formed but never touched you. And right now, you may not have clarity. You may not have peace, but you do have protection. You do have power. You do have someone fighting behind the veil for you with more force than you could ever muster alone. Not because you're perfect, but because you're called. Because your story isn't over. Because your voice, your light, your gift, it still matters. It's still needed. And nothing formed against it will last. You think you're tired? You think you've seen too much? Number. You're becoming. You're walking through fire to be forged, not forgotten. And those who hated you for no reason, who smiled while secretly hoping you'd fail, they don't even know how much they've already lost. Not in money, not in status, but in peace, in integrity, in the ability to look in the mirror without regret. That's their sentence. Watching the very person they tried to tear down build a life they could never destroy. Watching your silence echo louder than their screams. And no, you didn't get revenge. You didn't plot back. You didn't strike. But the force behind you did. It moved when you wept. It stood when you collapsed. It whispered when you had no words left. And it said, "I've got this. Keep walking, keep breathing, keep living. I'm not done defending you. And now look, the ones who used to brag about what they did to you now flinch when your name is spoken. Because the light that's rising from your life is undeniable. It's not flashy, but it's real. It's not loud, but it's loud enough to haunt the hearts of those who broke you. They thought you'd be stuck in bitterness, but you're out here glowing in grace, not perfect, but unshakable, not loud, but undeniable. So listen to me closely. You might not see it, you might not feel it, but someone is still fighting for you, right now, even in this moment, in realms you can't touch, in places your eyes can't reach, and every force raised against you is losing, badly. Not because you're fighting harder, but because the one behind you never loses. So breathe, straighten your back, wipe your tears, and stop walking like a victim. You are covered, you are watched, you are wanted by something greater than what tried to ruin you. And the war, it's already won. They just don't know it yet. So now, what do you do? When you know you're being defended, when you realize you're not here by chance, that survival wasn't a coincidence, that your name still echoes for a reason. What now? You stop apologizing for being chosen. You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. You stop explaining your peace to people who only ever wanted your chaos. You start walking like someone protected. You start thinking like someone preserved. You start speaking like someone who's been carried through things that would have buried others. You don't beg anymore. You don't chase anymore. You don't try to convince people to see what's always been true, because the power defending you already saw it, and that's all that matters. See, the people who betrayed you, they were just part of the test. Their role wasn't to last. It was to expose, to wake something up inside you that had been quiet for too long. Their betrayal wasn't your end. It was your awakening. You didn't lose when they left. You were released. Because sometimes protection looks like removal. Sometimes the most powerful thing your defender ever did was cut ties you didn't have the strength to cut yourself. And it hurt. Of course it did. You bled for people who never clapped when you healed. You gave your best to those who only remembered you in their worst moments. But that pain, that silence, that loneliness, it revealed something. It showed you who you are without them. It showed you that the real you, the one that rises alone, breathes in pain, stands in storms, is more dangerous than they ever expected. Because now you're awake. Now you see. You see that some of your darkest nights were your greatest lessons. You see that every delay was divine, that every no was a reroute, that every loss gave birth to more depth, more power, more clarity than winning ever could. And now, you're not begging life to be easier. You're just asking it to keep sharpening you, because you've tasted strength, and you know now you can survive anything. And your enemies, they know it too. That's what terrifies them, because they threw everything at you, and you're still here, not crawling, walking, not broken, burning. And now the game has changed, because the same power that defended you is now living through you. You've become a vessel for the very force that once stood between you and destruction. And when that happens, you become untouchable. You become the very storm they tried to keep out. You don't need to prove anything now. Your peace proves it. Your progress proves it. The glow they can't explain proves it. And it burns them, not because you hurt them, but because you healed without them. You rose without permission. You got stronger without revenge. So let them watch. Let them wonder how you did it. Let them sink in their silence while you build in yours, because this is your moment. Not the loud one, not the flashy one, but the sacred one. The moment the noise outside dies and the roar inside awakens fully. The moment you stop praying for rescue and start moving like the miracle you already are. And now, Now it's your turn to defend someone else, to fight for the quiet ones, to speak for the unheard, to be what you needed when you were in the shadows. Because you don't just survive storms to stand alone, you survive them to light the way. And maybe that's what your defender always knew, that you wouldn't just come out of the fire, you come out holding fire. You wouldn't just walk away healed, you'd walk away dangerous. Not to people, but to darkness, to doubt, to every lie that said you weren't enough. And now, you are enough. You are more than enough. Not because they say so, but because you became it. Without applause, without backup, without shortcuts. And now, the haters, the ones who whispered and watched and waited, they've already lost. They lost access to your energy. They lost the chance to grow beside you. They lost the privilege of your loyalty. And the deeper loss, they lost the war. Because you've already won it. Not with fists, but with faith. Not with revenge, but with resilience. Not by striking back, but by standing still while someone more powerful fought for you. And they never saw it coming. And now, it's quiet again. But not the same silence you used to fear. This silence isn't empty. It's earned. It's the sound of peace after the battle. It's the sound of chains hitting the floor. It's the silence that speaks louder than any shout, any rumor, any insult ever thrown at you. You've been through enough to know. The loudest people rarely have the deepest truth, and the quietest victories are the ones that last forever. Because now, the battle isn't just behind you, the battle has transformed you. You're not the same. You're not supposed to be. You've seen too much, lost too much, survived too much, and grown through every inch of it. And here you are, still standing, still rising, still moving forward. But now, you walk differently. There's weight in your steps. There's fire in your breath. There's legacy in your silence. Not because you tried to become something, but because everything that tried to stop you failed. Because everything that tried to define you collapsed under the truth. Because everything that was supposed to break you built you instead. You've been carried. You've been defended. You've been preserved. And now, the ones who tried to erase you, they're haunted by the very presence they couldn't destroy. They don't even need to hear from you anymore, because your life says everything they were trying to silence. Your peace speaks. Your strength speaks. Your glow speaks. They speak in rooms you've never entered, in minds you'll never live in, but whose memory of you is permanent, because you didn't get bitter. You got better. You didn't become vengeful. You became unreachable. You didn't fight back in rage. You let something greater fight for you. And now you're walking in the aftermath of that divine victory. And it's only just beginning, because what's ahead of you now is yours. Not borrowed, not stolen, not negotiated. Yours. You don't owe apologies for surviving. You don't owe silence to keep people comfortable. You don't owe softness to those who tried to burn you. What you owe now is your own becoming. You owe it to the person you were when no one believed in you, to the version of you who prayed for one more breath, one more day, to the person you used to be, who held on when everything screamed to let go. You owe it to the fight behind the scenes, to the one who stood in front of every unseen attack, to the silent warrior who defended you without asking for thanks. You owe it to the fire that refused to die, even when you did. So from this moment forward, you rise differently, not to prove a point, but because the point has already been proven. You don't need to prove you're strong. You are. You don't need to prove you're chosen. You were. And you don't need to prove they lost, because they did, badly. You just keep walking, keep healing, keep shining in silence. Because your story is still being written, and the pen is no longer in their hands. It's in yours, backed by something greater, held by something eternal, fought for by a force so powerful, so precise. Your enemies won't just regret hurting you. They'll never understand why nothing they did ever worked, and maybe they never will. But you will, because you'll feel the wind shift in your favor. You'll see the light break through in rooms that used to be dark. You'll feel that unseen force lift your head on the days you almost give up again. And when you do, you'll remember this moment, this silence, this truth. You were never alone. You were defended. You were preserved. You were chosen. And now you're unstoppable.